Welcome back to another session of History with Mr. B. And today we'll be looking in depth on Hitler's aggressive foreign policy. Today we'll be looking at the first method called destroy the Treaty of Versailles. So Hitler wanted to destroy the Treaty of Versailles. He hated the Treaty of Versailles. And for him, the Treaty of Versailles was an abomination. Okay, so he wanted to destroy the Treaty of Versailles. Now, how is he going to do that? Okay, a lot of Germans didn't like the Treaty of Versailles. That's granted. But to destroy the Treaty of Versailles is taking it to the next level. You can grumble about it. You can be very unhappy about it. But that's all you can do. But here you have Hitler who wants to overturn the Treaty of Versailles. That's what he wants to do. And how is he going to do it? He's going to destroy the Treaty of Versailles. So here are some methods he used in detail on how he destroyed the Treaty of Versailles. Now, first method he used was the disarmament clause. He used the disarmament clause. Now, under the Treaty of Versailles, basically Germany had to disarm themselves. They're forced to do this. So this we'll go in detail shortly, the disarmament clause. He's going to tackle this issue. Next, under the Treaty of Versailles, Rhineland is a demilitarized zone. So one way of destroying the Treaty of Versailles would be to do the exact opposite, to remilitarize Rhineland. For that, you need to have an army to do so. The problem with this is that Hitler in 1933 to 1935 did not have sufficient army. So he needed to build his army during this period of time. So in order to destroy the Treaty of Versailles, he would need to remilitarize Rhineland. Okay, so that's another example of how the Treaty of Versailles was destroyed. Next, loss of territories. Okay, so we look at the loss of territories. Hitler wanted to destroy the Treaty of Versailles by recapturing lost territories. Under the Treaty of Versailles, remember, 10% of European German land was given away. And some of these lands were basically part of now Poland, for example, or Czechoslovakia. Okay, so he wanted to reclaim these lost lands or lost territories. We'll go into the details of it shortly. Next would be the Anschluss. Anschluss means merging of two nations. So here you have the Anschluss under the Treaty of Versailles. It says that Germany could not and cannot merge with Austria. Now, the reason behind this is to basically make Germany weak. The same was applied even on the Austrian side when they signed the Saint-Germain Treaty, which stipulates that Austria cannot merge or have an Anschluss with Germany. All right. So Hitler wanted to destroy the Treaty of Versailles by going through the Anschluss, by executing the Anschluss. He did it in 1934. That was his first attempt, but that failed. And his second attempt in 1938, things were more favorable. The situation was more favorable for Hitler, and it was a success. Okay. Now, let's talk about the first part, the disarmament clause. Now, under the Treaty of Versailles, as I mentioned, Germany was forced to disarm. But if you can look at the picture, you can see that you have these soldiers, these German soldiers with full uniform. And you'll notice that with the uniform and with the helmet and even with the rifles, they have the guns as well. You can see that you have soldiers as well as you have weapons. Okay, so the disarmament clause would be broken, okay, by introducing conscription and building up Germany's armed forces. And this basically will help Hitler gain popularity because he had promised the people bread and work. Now you can see from the picture, you have uniform, you have helmet, you have gun. Okay, so these would require factories to manufacture these things. So you have employment because machines will need to be run under the supervision of people. There are a lot of labor intensive. Back in the 1930s was more labor intensive rather than machine intensive. So you have people during the Great Depression in Germany where factories were converted from making consumer products to military products. Hence, you have employment, and Hitler was able to fulfill his promise to the people that he would give them work and bread. On top of that, if you get recruited into the army, okay, you'll have food and you'll be taken care of. So this was a good incentive for the German youth to join. If you can see the picture, you can see from the faces, these are not old men who have served in the First World War, but rather young men who were in dire straits during the Great Depression. So they too, they joined the army. So how did Hitler break the disarmament clause? By introducing conscription and building up Germany's armed forces. Next, you have the remilitarization of Rhineland. This is another way of destroying the Treaty of Versailles, because under the Treaty of Versailles, Rhineland, which is at the border between Belgium, Netherlands, and France, okay, these areas are to be demilitarized under the Treaty of Versailles, so they don't pose a threat to their neighbor. So instead of making Rhineland an independent nation like what Transvaal wanted, the peacemakers at Versailles decided eventually to make Rhineland a DMZ, a demilitarized zone. Hitler wanted to break this clause in the Treaty of Versailles by remilitarizing Rhineland, and to do that, you need to break another treaty term, which is, of course, conscription and building up your army, rearmament. Okay, so by remilitarizing Rhineland, okay, this strengthens Germany's western frontier because you now have German soldiers at the western frontier to protect them from Belgian aggression or from French aggression. So now you have a situation where, if you can look at the picture over here, you can see that you have these German soldiers on horseback riding into the area, and this area would be Rhineland. And you can see the people of Rhineland, their reaction to the soldiers coming into Rhineland would be positive. You can see it's positive. A good evidence of this is that you can see a lot of people have come out to see the soldiers marching into Rhineland. And you can see these women over here giving the Nazi salute. Now, the Nazi salute also shows patriotism, nationalism to the Third Reich. So all this was happening in 1936. Always remember that this picture took place in 1936 because Rhineland was remilitarized only in 1936. So it begs to question what happened between 1933 to 1935. In order for you to have a military, in order for you to have military strength, you need to build up your military during that time, between 1933 to 1935. Okay, so that is how Hitler destroyed the Treaty of Versailles by remilitarizing Rhineland. And next, lost territories. Now, under the Treaty of Versailles, 10% of European German land was given away. So and how do you break the Treaty of Versailles? Hitler did this by regaining lost territories. And by regaining lost territories, what we mean here is by taking over lands that are predominantly German speakers, basically. Okay, so lost territories were regained. Now, examples of these would be like the Saar, the Ruhr, Rhineland would be another as well. Sudetenland was the most infamous case which dealt with Czechoslovakia. So if you can look at the map, you can see where Sudetenland was. And this was very important because, or very significant, because if you were Czechoslovakia, just have a look at that. If you're Czechoslovakia, you're a newly created country, basically. And you can see where Sudetenland is. Now, what is Sudetenland? It's a land that is heavily populated by German speakers, okay? And if you can look at this map, you can see that you would be very much afraid if you're at the Czechoslovakian government, you'll be very much afraid of your neighbor, especially Germany. If you can look at the map over there where German territory is, you would put a lot of your defenses at the border. And where is that defenses? That would be at Sudetenland. You won't put it anywhere deeper into Czechoslovakian land, but rather at the border as a front defense. If Sudetenland is given away to Hitler, for example, which is what happened in 1938 in the Munich Agreement, Sudetenland was given away, okay? What's going to happen to the defense, Czechoslovakians' defenses against aggressive neighbors? It would have been lost, especially against Germany over here. And so they'll be very vulnerable by in being taken over by Germany, which actually took place in 1939. Okay, so how do you describe the Treaty of Versailles? Regain lost territory. Okay, now let's talk about Anschluss. Now, like I mentioned, under the Treaty of Versailles, Germany and Austria cannot merge. They're banned from being united together. So uniting with Austria was specifically banned in the Treaty of Versailles as well as in the Treaty of Saint-Germain. But now this formed part of Hitler's bigger plan. Okay, now the question that we need to ask ourselves, why was Anschluss something that Hitler was very interested in and wanted to really go with the whole Anschluss endeavor? What was the reason behind it? So we're going to be asking this question, why did Hitler want the Anschluss? Now the reason for this is basically nationalism. Now Hitler needed to unite the people, and to do that, he needed people to be nationalistic. What do I mean by nationalistic? That means patriotic to the cause of the greater German good. Next would be for resources. Now, Austria was rich in resources, and by gaining these resources, Hitler would have an added advantage, as well as for military as well. By having Austria part of the greater Germany, you will have military resources. So this is pretty good actually for Hitler in some ways. Okay, all right. Sorry about that. Let's move on to the first point. Hitler believed Germany and Austria belong together. So just think about it. What do you think? Do you think it falls under nationalism, resources, or military? Just give it a thought. Hitler believed Germany and Austria belong together. Let's look at the words. Hitler believed, okay, that Germany, the people in Germany and the people in Austria belong together. So this has a sense of nationalism. Okay, another advantage of this would be the resources. Because they belong together, they can work together, they speak the same language, so you have human resources. And they can join the army as well, and this will strengthen their military. Next, Austria was where Hitler was born. So he wasn't German, he was actually Austrian, but his mother tongue was German. Okay, so these are Germanic people. And next, he wanted to develop a greater Germany. Remember, that's what he wanted. He wanted a greater Germany. He wanted an empire. And so by having this Anschluss, he would be able to take those steps towards building and developing a greater Germany. And he wanted to unite the German speakers. This is what he wanted to do. He wanted to unite the German speakers. By uniting the German speakers, they're able to work together. And next, by working together, all of them having the same aim, he would be able to better effect in the breaking of the Treaty of Versailles, because this will gain his popularity. The German people, including the Austrian people, did not like the peace settlement. They did not like, for the Germans, they did not like the Treaty of Versailles. For the Australians, they did not like the Saint-Germain. So Hitler wanted to break the Treaty of Versailles, and by merging with or having the Anschluss with Austria, it will nullify the Saint-Germain Treaty. That would be something that the Austrians would like, okay? And but there are opponents to this. There are certain opponents to this. There are some Austrians who do not want to be under the influence or under the purview of Hitler, and they wanted to be independent because they are the government and they are the majority. In the sense, not everyone in Austria wanted the Anschluss, but a lot of people did want to have the Anschluss. Next, like I mentioned, the resources. Hitler wanted Austria's mineral deposits. Now, for Hitler wanting this, it tells you something about Austria. It is rich with mineral deposits, which can be used as raw materials in the factories to produce whatever they need to produce in order to become beneficial and add value for them. Okay, and next would be military. Increase the military strength of the Nazis, basically, and make that a more formidable force, basically. So by gaining the Anschluss with Austria, okay, they are able to basically be stronger in terms of military. They can get a larger or more mineral deposits, as well as they are able to gain more manpower and also unite the people together under a common banner. Nationalism would spike. Okay, and so this pretty much ends our topic for today. Thank you very much for being with us today, and I'll see you guys shortly in our next episode. Thank you very much.